Good morning. We're going to be learning about the quadratic equation or the quadratic formula. And here we have some coffee art to help introduce this topic to us. The quadratic formula is a formula that's used to solve the equations in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. In the past, when we were solving these, we had to factor these into our binomial times binomial situations and then use our zero product property. But the issue with that is sometimes we would have weird things in our binomials, and it wasn't easy to think about. This quadratic formula is going to work for any situation where you have actual real answers. So it'll work for decimals, it'll work for weird fractions, it'll work for integers, it'll work for all of it. So when you have a situation where you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you are going to have the formula x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now when you think about this, think about the song Pop Goes the Weasel. I'm going to have to apologize a little bit here. I'm not traditionally the greatest singer anyway, but with my cold it's probably going to be a little worse, so sorry in advance. I hope your ears don't start bleeding. But think of it as x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that formula is then what we're going to use for this. So I'm going to be lazy here and capture this so I don't have to write it on the next page here. So I've got my quadratic formula here, and I'm going to identify my A, my B, and my C. So 2 is my A, 7 is my B, and negative 9 is my C. So I'm going to do x equals the opposite of B, so the opposite of 7 is negative 7, plus or minus the square root of B squared, well, 7 squared, minus 4 AC, so 4 times 2 times negative 9, and all of that's going to be divided by 2 times 2, or 2 times A. Time to simplify. So let's see, I've got negative 7 plus or minus, let's see, 7 squared is 49. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 9 is a positive 72. And that's over 2 times 2 is 4. 49 plus 72 is 121. So that's negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 121 all over 2. Square root of 121, well, 11 times 11 is 121. So that's negative 7 plus or minus 11 over 2. Now, if we think back to when we had these problems when we were actually factoring the binomials, remember your degree tells you how many answers you have. So we should have 2 answers. For example, when we would do this earlier, we would have the zero product property like we talked about a minute ago. This binomial would equal something for x, and this binomial would equal something for x. Well, the way that the quadratic formula takes care of that is with the plus or minus right here. So that means we have 2 different answers at this point. We have the answer where you have negative 7 plus 11 divided by 2, and you have the other answer where you've got negative 7 minus 11 over 2. So again, you're always going to have two answers for these. Negative 7 plus 11 is going to be a positive 4 over 2, which is just 2. I've got negative 7 minus 11, that's a negative 18 over 2, which is a negative 9. So my two answers for this are x equals positive 2 and x equals negative 9. And you can just go ahead and write those side by side like that. Remember, don't put parentheses around these because they are not ordered pairs. So you can either put them side by side like that, or if it's easier or more comfortable for you, you can go ahead and just put them x equals negative 2, x equals 9, like that, if you don't like seeing them with the commas there. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Pause your video. Here's a good hint for you. This is the setup for this problem. It's x equals the opposite of b. Well, b right now is a negative 1, so the opposite of that is going to be a positive 1. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So if you did have that set up, awesome. Go ahead and let your video play and make sure you got the correct answer. If you didn't have that set up, go back and fix your mistake and try again and see if you come up with the same answers I did. The answer for this one, and you may have worked it a bit too far, sorry I didn't stop and explain this sooner, but the answer for this one can actually be left as x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 17 over 8. Now, if that square root of 17 was something like we'd been working with that had a perfect square inside, so if it was like the square root of 8, you would need to simplify that radical to make it completely simplified for the answer. But you can leave it this way. You could also go ahead and take the square root of 17 and then take 1 plus that decimal divided by 8 and 1 minus that decimal divided by 8. But again, like we were talking about with our square roots and simplifying our square roots, this is a more exact answer. So in several instances, this is the preferred answer. You have 6 homework problems to try. These will be due Monday. You have the rest of the time in class and the rest of the weekend to work on them. Don't hesitate to work together if you need a little bit of extra help. Have a great weekend.